I know that people will be hurt by that vote, and we worked very hard to try to get a budget deal that wouldn't include that provision.
We're here today because an unspeakable tragedy has unfolded in Minnesota. My good friend and colleague, Speaker Melissa Hoffman, and her husband Mark were shot and killed early this morning in what appears to be a politically motivated assassination. Our state lost a great leader, and I lost the dearest of friends. Speaker Hortman was someone who served the people of Minnesota with grace, compassion, humor, and a sense of service. She was a formidable public servant, a fixture and a giant in Minnesota. She woke up every day determined to make this state a better place. She is irreplaceable, and we've been missed by so many. Minnesota's thoughts and prayers are with her family, her loved ones, her children, and her parents. My prayers.
It's very complex and working on it. What I will tell you, when we did a search of the vehicle, there wasn't a manifesto that identified many lawmakers and other officials. We immediately made alerts to the state who took action on alerting them and providing security where necessary. And that's about, I'll stop there.
All right, guys. So we got to talk about a very, very, very sad story. A story that we talk about way too often in this country that involves what appears to be targeted political violence, okay, in this country that is out of control. And it is manifesting itself in ways where we are now seeing assassination attempts or assassinations become way too common in this country, okay? And that is what we have to talk about here today, as two Minnesota lawmakers were shot in apparent targeted incidents. Now, the two lawmakers involved, you have Melissa Hortman, who is a former Speaker of the Minnesota House and a leader within the DFL party within Minnesota, which is basically the Democrat Party. She and her husband were fatally shot. So she died along with her husband, and Senator John Hoffman and his wife were seriously wounded. They are out of surgery, and they are expected to survive as of right now. However, their status is we really don't know. It's here or there, right? In regards to whether or not they're going to make it. I'm hoping and praying that they do make it, okay? So with that being said, I want to talk about this story because the details of this story are extremely disturbing, okay? Essentially, what you have here is an incident or two incidents that appear to be connected. Around 2 a.m., a gunman posed as a police officer, opened fired at the home of State Senator John Hoffman in Champlin, seriously wounding him and his wife. And then about 90 minutes later, the same suspect appeared at a house of State Representative Melissa Hortman, also while impersonating law enforcement, and killed her and her husband, Mark. So both of these attacks appear to be pre-planned, and investigators found a target list of other public officials in the suspect's vehicle. So I'm going to go ahead and play this clip so people can get a general understanding of what happened, and then we're going to listen to what law enforcement has to say because, again, this is a very, very, very serious situation that has led to the so-called No Kings protest being canceled in Minnesota, or at least put it this way, law enforcement is essentially recommending that people do not participate at this time because of what has happened. So let's go ahead and get into this.
And good morning to you. I'm Gio Benitez. We are following breaking news right now. Sources telling ABC News that two Minnesota state lawmakers have been shot in what law enforcement officials say was a targeted incident. Let's get right on the phone now with ABC News Chief Investigative Reporter Josh Margolin. Josh, you've been following this all morning long. What do we know right now?
Gio, good morning. It's a very, very serious situation just north of Minneapolis in the Hennepin County suburbs, highly populated area. We have a former Speaker of the State House and a state senator, both Democrats. Not saying that party has anything to do with it at all at this point, but both are Democrats. Apparently, they were in their separate homes near each other, and allegedly they were shot by the same perpetrator. Perpetrator is now on the run. The injuries are serious, grave. It's a very serious situation. The governor is on site, as is the FBI.
And I know that you're learning that the FBI is now involved. We believe at this point that the shooter was impersonating law enforcement?
Yes, that is believed to be what happened. The shooter was definitely apparently wearing some sort of tactical gear and reported to be looking like impersonating law enforcement. That could ultimately not be the case when they finally get a hold of the shooter, but part of this is they wanted to alert the local population. This is somebody who needs to be considered very, very dangerous.
We're also learning here, Josh, that both of these lawmakers were shot at their homes. Is that right?
Yes, apparently both at their homes. Law enforcement was very, very quick to say these are targeted attacks. That is language that they use when they want the public to know there's not some sort of active shooter randomly shooting at people outside. But yes, they were targeted at their homes. And as you know, Gio, state lawmakers tend to be highly accessible. They're members of the community, members of the population, mothers at PTA meetings and parents who go to Little League games.
All right, Josh Margolin, our chief investigative reporter, thank you so much. I know you're going to stay on this all morning long here and all day long for sure. Josh, thank you.
Yeah, so again, this is terrible. This is absolutely terrible. So I want to play a clip here of law enforcement discussing what happened, okay, particularly how they found State Representative Melissa Hortman, because the assassin appears to be a professional, okay, and extremely dangerous, extremely deadly. And again, this is just a very, very, very wild story. So let's go ahead and play the clip because, again, apparently this guy who did this, again, he planned this out, and this was something that was done with expertise. Take a look.
Hi, Ken. Good morning. Police Chief Mark Bruley, Brooklyn Park Police Department. The question is, how did we get to Representative Hortman's house, and it was proactively or not? The circumstances that unfolded in Brooklyn Park this morning is that we assisted the Champlin Police Department on a shooting. That shooting was made aware by one of our sergeants that it was at Senator Hoffman's home. In hearing that very intuitive sergeant asked our officers to go check on Melissa Hortman's home, a representative that lives in our community, just proactively as due diligence to swing by. That police officer and his partner pulled down the street when they arrived at Melissa's house. They noticed that there was a police vehicle in the driveway with the lights, emergency lights on, and what appeared to be a police officer at the door coming out of the house. When our officers confronted him, the individual immediately fired upon the officers, who exchanged gunfire, and the suspect retreated back into the home.
Was this an actual police officer or an impersonating police officer?
Yes, the question is, was it a real person or a person impersonating a police officer? It was not a real police officer. This is somebody that clearly had been impersonating a police officer, again, using the trust of this badge and this uniform to manipulate their way into the home.
So, Chief Burley, Janice Shortle, Pier 11, the person not only was wearing a badge posing as a police officer, when they approached their victims, they had a car with lights and sirens?
Yes, the question is what kind of vehicle, how were they dressed? They did drive a vehicle that looked exactly like an SUV squad car. It was equipped with lights, emergency lights that looked exactly like a police vehicle. And yes, they were wearing a vest with taser, other equipment that would, a badge very similar to mine, that no question, if they were in this room, you would assume that they are a police officer.
Chief Burley of WCCO News, can you describe the moments after that played out? You said the person went into the home, and then can you help us understand the next 10, 15 minutes of how we got to the point we're at now?
Yeah, briefly, although I'm just going to remind us that this is an absolutely active investigation. We have thousands of people sheltered in place in the city of Brooklyn Park right now. We are in an extensive manhunt involving hundreds and hundreds of police officers and SWAT teams searching, gridding off areas as we believe confidently the suspect had fled out the back of the house after being confronted by the police. Very briefly, after the officers had exchanged gunfire and the suspect retreated into Melissa's home, they immediately went up to the threshold and looked in and seen a male that was down, clearly had been struck by gunfire. They made limited penetration, grabbed a hold of the male and drug him out to safety to attempt first aid. However, he was pronounced dead shortly after that. At that point, the officers surrounded the house, got additional resources and SWAT resources, and then ultimately went in with a drone identifying a female in the home.
I know you may not want to identify that person publicly, but have you privately identified the suspect?
We have people of interest that we are looking for.
Minnesota Reporter. Other than that, these are two Democrats. there anything else to suggest that this is politically motivated?
Again, I'm going to hold back most of the information. This is part of the investigation that we completed. This is rapidly evolving, just occurred a few hours ago, and we're trying to sort it out. We have partners from the FBI, the BCA, the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office, and almost every suburban agency in our community helping us with this. So it's very complex and working on it. What I will tell you, when we did a search of the vehicle, there wasn't a manifesto that identified many lawmakers and other officials. We immediately made alerts to the state who took action on alerting them and providing security where necessary. And that's about, I'll stop there.
Chief, thank you very much. We're going to take one more question.
Sure, with the BCA, can I have just, you use the word targeted, and that's kind of along the lines of Michelle's question in terms of politics, Democrats, and Republicans. These are both Democratic lawmakers. You said the word targeted. So targeted because they're politicians or targeted because they're Democrats?
Well, so the question is were they targeted, and when I use the term, why am I using the term? As Chief Bruley noted, there was a list of individuals, and the individuals that were targeted in this situation were on that list. And so when we're looking at that, as Chief Bruley said, it's far too early in the investigation to be able to provide information, but I do think we'll be in a position where we'll be able to develop the motivation behind these attacks, and we'll be able to provide more information as this unfolds. And so that's part of the reason we're using it, is I think there's some preliminary information that is telling us kind of where this is headed, but we need a lot more work done by all the teams that are here working on that to be able to provide that with you with a degree of accuracy. Thanks.
Yeah, so you seen that, you heard that. Now, again, this assassin clearly was a professional. Okay, this is somebody who knew exactly what they were doing and how they was going to go about executing these assassinations and how he was going to get away. Because apparently the police had exchanged gunfire with the individual, and the individual escaped out the back of the lawmaker's house after he killed her. Okay, and that, to me, again, indicates somebody that really is a dangerous person and knows exactly what he's doing. I'm actually surprised that police weren't able to catch the individual and that the individual escaped. Okay, there's now a manhunt for the individual, and that is why essentially that part of Minnesota is on lockdown. Okay, to the point now where you have police essentially saying that the No Kings protest should not happen. Right, people should not show up for the No Kings protest. I think part of the reason why is because there was No Kings papers found inside the suspect's fake police car. Okay, actually, you have Minnesota State Patrol. They posted this picture here on X. They say, given the targeted shootings of state lawmakers overnight, we are asking the public to not attend today's planned demonstrations across Minnesota out of an abundance of caution. Yeah, so this is why I say to you guys that we should probably not come to any specific conclusions about the motivations behind this. Apparently, the individual left a manifesto. They're not really saying exactly what is in the manifesto outside of the fact that allegedly there was a list of lawmakers, okay, that presumably are targets, right? But outside of that, we really don't know that much. And then we have this, okay, again, these No Kings papers, which to me, again, indicate that, again, this could be politically motivated from either side of the aisle, right? I think a lot of people are going to make the mistake and assume that this was some type of Trump supporter, this was a conservative or Republican, but I wouldn't come to that conclusion, right? I think it's unwise to come to that conclusion. I actually think it's unwise to come to any real conclusions at this point. There's a lot of speculation about the possible motive behind this. In fact, as I was making this video, bombshell news just came out. Allegedly, they have a suspect, okay? And it seems to be a former appointee of Minnesota Governor Tim Walz is being sought in connection with the assassination of a state lawmaker and the shooting of another, police sources said. Vance Luther Boelter allegedly posed as a police officer when he shot Senator John Hoffman and his wife in their Champlin home early Saturday, leaving them seriously injured before moving on to former Democratic House Speaker Melissa Hortman's house, where he is believed to have slaughtered her and her husband, sources told the Post. Yeah, so allegedly, this is the gunman. Okay, again, all this is alleged. This is as of the making of this video at about 1:30 p.m. on Saturday, June 14th. Okay, so this could change, but apparently this is the guy. Okay, he's 57 years old. He was appointed by Walz in 2019 and served a 4-year stint on the governor's Workforce Development Board, documents show. He previously served on the governor's Workforce Development Council in 2016 under then Governor Mark Dayton. Yeah, so this is why I said that it's unwise to come out here and to blame Trump. It's unwise to say that it's a Republican, it's a conservative, or to come out here and say anything like that, because, again, we have seen far leftists commit acts of violence against Democrats. Okay, Democrats have allowed these people to become so out of control that they've turned their violence on Democrats. We've seen that. Now, again, I don't know. I'm still not coming to any conclusions. I'm just telling you guys that this is the information that we have. And I'm going to go ahead and play a video of police talking about how they are encouraging people not to show up to these No King protests because this guy, again, apparently is still on the loose as of the making of this video. Take a look.
This is still a very active investigation, so there will be very limited information that we can give on any of that. If questions keep going too far into that, we'll just call it, and then we'll come back and update you when we can. Colonel?
Good morning. Colonel Christina Bogoyevich with the Minnesota State Patrol. Given the targeted shootings of state lawmakers that happened overnight, we are asking the public to not attend today's planned demonstrations across Minnesota out of an abundance of caution. I'll stand for any questions.
Are there reasons to believe that these events were also targeted by the person in the manifesto in the car?
We don't have any direct links. However, there were some flyers that said No Kings within the suspect vehicle. And as we know, the planned events throughout the state of Minnesota today is a No Kings event. I don't have any information on the ongoing investigation right now.
On the list of targets, for lack of a better term, are all of the people on the list, have they all been notified, and do they have law enforcement presence with them?
Again, that is part of the investigation right now, so I'm not going to answer those. Thank you.
So, well, I'm sorry, as I mentioned, we're getting to investigatory information. I'll leave that to Superintendent.
Yeah, and good afternoon again, everyone, or good morning. Drew Evans, Superintendent of the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension.
Superintendent, excuse me, can we have it quiet out there so everybody can hear? Thank you.
What I wanted to note, though, is part of this, the references, the individual that is a person of interest that we've talked about, or individuals, are not in custody at this time. And so the reference materials that were inside of the vehicle that we saw, we have no understanding that any of the No Kings events would be targeted, but we also find it of interest to the public that these would be in there, and we want to alert everybody until we do that. Because this is such an active investigation with information not knowing right now, we feel it's an obligation to all of you and the public across the state of Minnesota to alert you of it, and that's why the Colonel made the notation of recommending people don't go today. But the individuals are not in custody yet, and so we want to make sure as that very active manhunt is underway and continues, that we make sure that we're sharing that, and that's part of why we're making the recommendation. As to that investigation and the list, we are working through that now and talking to individuals, and we'll continue to. What I would say with the list is there's a large number of people. That's all I can say about it. We will work through all of that, what the motivations of this are, and we'll provide that as you can. This is really a public safety announcement for everybody so that we can make sure people are informed and make safe decisions throughout the day.
Thank you.
Yeah. So you seen that, you heard that. No King's papers found. And when we talk about a possible motive here, some people are speculating that this had something to do with Melissa Hortman's vote recently to vote against free health care for illegals in Minnesota. I don't know, right? But all I'm saying is that, you know, I have warned about this. I've warned about how celebrating assassinations is not a good idea. Okay, when the leftists came out here and they celebrated the assassination of the United Healthcare CEO, I said this is very dangerous. You don't want to play with this stuff, even if you don't like the guy, even if you don't agree with the guy, even if you don't like the healthcare industry. Once you open up Pandora's box and these type of assassinations become the norm, we don't want to live in that country, right? We don't want to live in that kind of country where this stuff has become normalized. We've seen multiple assassination attempts on the president. We've seen it on Supreme Court justices. We've seen it on Democrats, okay? We've seen it on Republicans. We've seen it on major CEOs. yeah, this is becoming the norm, and this is not good for the country. It's not good for the country to go down this rabbit hole. But again, this is what happens when you have people who celebrate this type of stuff, right? I mean, they've essentially made a deity out of Luigi, right? And you're going to have copycats that say, hey, I want to be deified like him. Okay? That's kind of what they do. That's what happens. So again, I don't know the motivations behind this. I'm just saying that it's too early to come to any solid conclusions. But based off the information that we have now, I think it's unwise for anybody to come out and start blaming Trump or to say it's a Republican or it's a conservative or, you know, anything like that. We're going to get more details, okay, and we'll see. But until the end, my thoughts and prayers are with the victims and their families. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.